You know, for over 60 years, one hero has stayed right at the top of popular culture. And he's not some billionaire or an alien or a god. Nope, he's just a kid from Queens. So what's the secret? What's the magic formula for Spider-Man's staying power? Well, today we're going to break down the anatomy of this icon to figure out exactly why he endures.
All right, let's just jump right into the heart of it with this quote. Because the real key to Spider-Man, it isn't the spider, it's the man. See, before him, heroes were these perfect figures you looked up to, but Peter Parker, he was one of us. He had problems that had absolutely nothing to do with supervillains. I mean, that was a totally revolutionary idea, and it's pretty much the foundation for everything that makes him so great.
And to really get how radical this was, you gotta transport yourself back to the 1960s. The comic book world back then, it was all about these stoic, infallible, grown-up heroes. The idea of a teenager leading a comic, let alone one who was full of self-doubt and was always broke, was just completely unheard of. Now, what's really funny is that Marvel's own publisher, a guy named Martin Goodman, he hated the idea at first. I mean, his objections are legendary. He said, "Nobody likes spiders. A teenager can't be the main hero. They have to be a sidekick." And, the biggest one, he was just too flawed. Goodman actually thought a hero couldn't have money problems and girlfriend trouble. And the best part, the real irony, is that every single one of these problems would become the core reasons for his unbelievable success. And that's exactly why people connected with him so much. That relatability was like a magnet. Audiences, especially young people, they really saw themselves in Peter Parker. There was this famous Esquire poll back in 1965 where college students ranked Spider-Man right up there with revolutionary figures like Bob Dylan and Che Guevara as a cultural icon. And why? Because, like one student said, he was one of us. But you know, just being relatable isn't enough to make you a hero, right? So the next piece of the puzzle, the really crucial part, is the event that completely forged his character. His heroism wasn't born from some big triumphant moment. It was born from a devastating personal failure. So let's just walk through this tragic chain of events. A nerdy high school kid gets these amazing powers. And what's his first instinct? It's not to fight crime. It's to cash in, to get famous. Then, in this moment of pure arrogance, he lets a thief run right past him, basically thinking, not my problem. But that one single act of not caring, it comes back to haunt him in the worst way imaginable, when that same thief goes on to murder his Uncle Ben. And this leads to maybe the single most important line in his entire history, right there in the final panel of his very first comic. This isn't just some catchy slogan. It is the moral bedrock of his character. It's the lesson he learned through unimaginable pain, and it dictates every single choice he makes as Spider-Man from that point forward. So let's see how this all plays out. Because here's the thing. Taking that vow to be responsible, it didn't magically solve his problems. Oh no. If anything, it made them so much worse. The creators started layering in what they called heavy doses of soap opera, which made the life of Peter Parker just as gripping as the adventures of Spider-Man. I mean, just look at this list of woes. He can lift a car, but he can't make rent for his Aunt May. He can face down supervillains, but he still gets pushed around by his high school bully, Flash Thompson. And the ultimate irony, his only steady job is taking pictures of himself so he can sell them to his boss, J. Jonah Jameson, a man who uses his newspaper to convince the entire city that Spider-Man is a menace. It's this constant struggle that made his story feel like you were reading about a real person's life. And of course, you can't have a good soap opera without a complicated love life. On one side, you have Gwen Stacy, Peter's first real love. Her tragic death, man, that was a landmark moment, not just for Spider-Man, but for all of comics. It basically signaled that the age of innocence was over. And then, on the other side, you've got Mary Jane Watson. She struts into his life with that iconic line, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot." She starts out as this fun party girl, but grows into his best friend, his greatest confidant, and his partner. It's one of the most famous love triangles in all of fiction. Now, a hero this complex needs villains that can match him, and Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, it's one of the best in comics, period. And that's largely because so many of his enemies are like dark reflections of himself. They're men who got power through science, but they have none of his sense of responsibility. Okay, let's break down his big three. First, the Green Goblin. He isn't just a threat to Spider-Man, he's a threat to Peter Parker. He attacks his family and his friends, and he's the one who murdered Gwen Stacy. Then you've got Dr. Octopus, who is basically the man Peter could have become, a brilliant scientist twisted by his own ambition. And then there's Venom.
The alien costume that Spider-Man once wore, now bonded with a guy who despises him. It creates this evil mirror image who knows his secret identity and, maybe worst of all, doesn't trigger his spider sense. It's terrifying.
So you put all these ingredients together, the relatable hero, the moral core, the soap opera drama, the deeply personal villains, and that's the recipe. That's what transformed him from just a comic book character into a true global phenomenon.
And when I say phenomenon, the numbers are just staggering. Check this out. In 2014 alone, licensed Spider-Man products pulled in $1.3 billion in global retail sales. To put that in perspective, that made him the single most profitable superhero in the world, more than Batman, Superman, and the Avengers combined at the time. He wasn't just a fan favorite, he was an absolute commercial powerhouse.
And you could just see his cultural footprint expanding across the decades. He's had an animated TV show since 1967. The 2002 movie starring Tobey Maguire that pretty much kicked off the modern superhero movie boom that we're still living in. And then in 2018, Into the Spider-Verse didn't just win an Oscar. It brought the idea that anyone can wear the mask to a massive audience, introducing the world to amazing characters like Miles Morales. So when you strip it all away, the reason he's endured for so long is actually pretty simple. He's us. He's the person struggling to pay the bills, the one who makes big mistakes, the one who gets their heart broken. He's the everyman who was given this extraordinary power, and despite all the pain and suffering it brings him, he chooses again and again and again to use it to help other people. That choice, that's his ultimate legacy. He proved that the most powerful heroes aren't the ones who are perfect, but the ones who are human. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought, right? After all this time defining what a hero can be, what great responsibility is coming next?